5 years ago, Elena Sinclair was the envy of every woman in New York City. Married to Damian Cross, the ruthless, devastatingly handsome CEO of Cross Enterprises, she had everything: wealth, status, a fairy tale life. Or so it seemed. Behind closed doors, their marriage was crumbling in ways Elena couldn't quite name, but felt in every cold glance, every distant touch. Every night Damian came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. He grew cold, then colder, his warmth reserved for late-night phone calls. He'd taken his office with the door locked. He started working late, and by late I mean 3 in the morning, stumbling in with excuses about merger negotiations and investor demands that somehow always required his personal attention at midnight. If you enjoy these stories but haven't subscribed yet, come on, don't break my heart. Subscribe now and drop your location in the comments. I read every one. May God bless you as you do so. Now let's dive into the story. Then he hired her, Sophia Loren, his new executive assistant, though that title felt like calling a hurricane a light breeze. Beautiful in that calculated way where every strand of hair has a purpose, ambitious with the kind of hunger that looks like devotion if you're not paying attention, and always, always there. At the office before Damian arrived, leaving after he left, texting him updates on weekends, calling during their anniversary dinner with an urgent matter that somehow only she could explain to him. Elena tried to hold on with everything she had. She fought for her marriage like a woman drowning fights for air desperately, exhaustingly, with the kind of effort that leaves you wondering if survival is even worth the cost. But the harder she tried, the more Damian pulled away, until she could feel him slipping through her fingers like water she couldn't hold no matter how tightly she squeezed. Until one night, everything shattered. At a charity gala, in front of New York's elite, under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses, Damian did the unthinkable. When Elena confronted him about Sophia, when she finally worked up the courage after 6 months of dismissing her own instincts, he didn't just deny it. He destroyed her. He called her toxic in a voice loud enough for the women in Chanel to hear. He called her obsessive, while Sophia stood 3 feet away with tears she'd somehow produced on command. He said she was suffocating him with her paranoia, that her jealousy was killing their marriage, that he couldn't live with someone so unstable anymore. He painted her as the villain in a story he'd been writing for months, while Sophia stood by his side playing the victim so perfectly that even Elena almost believed she was the monster. The divorce was brutal in ways that make courtroom dramas look gentle. Damian's lawyers, the kind who bill $1,000 an hour and earn every penny, made sure Elena left with almost nothing. The prenup she'd signed when she was young and in love and stupid enough to believe love mattered more than legal protection stripped her of everything except a small settlement and her dignity, though they tried to take that too. No one believed her side of the story because Damian had spent months making sure they wouldn't, planting seeds of her instability in conversations at dinner parties, mentioning her jealousy to mutual friends, building a narrative where his infidelity looked like her insanity. She became the cautionary tale whispered at brunches, the crazy ex-wife who couldn't let go, the woman other wives pitied and feared becoming in equal measure. Now 5 years later, on the day Damian is set to marry Sophia in a cathedral ceremony with 500 guests and media coverage, and the kind of spectacle that announces you won at life, Elena returns. Not broken like he left her, not begging like he expected, but transformed into something he never imagined. Standing in the cathedral doorway with a 4-year-old daughter who has Damian's steel-gray eyes and his determined chin and his dark hair, living proof that his perfectly constructed lie has a witness he never knew existed. And she's about to ruin everything. Before we go any further into how we got here, I need you to do something. If you believe that people deserve to know the truth, that justice shouldn't only belong to those who can afford the best lawyers and the most convincing lies, that sometimes the crazy ex-wife was never crazy at all, hit that subscribe button right now. It takes our team over 20 hours to research, write, and produce each story like this. Hours spent making sure every detail is accurate, every emotion is real, every moment does justice to the people who live it. Your subscription tells us you value real stories over comfortable fairy tales, that you can handle the messy truth over the polished lie. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss a story, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Only skip if you're comfortable never knowing how the mighty fall when their secrets walk through the door, holding their hand. So how did we get here? How did a fairy tale marriage turn into a public destruction that left one woman erased and another woman wearing her life like a borrowed dress? What really happened behind the closed doors of that Manhattan penthouse while the world was busy calling Elena crazy? And what's about to happen in that cathedral when Damien Cross sees his daughter for the first time? When 5 years of lies meet 4 years of living proof? When Sophia's perfect wedding day becomes the stage for the truth she helped bury? Stay with me, because this story will show you exactly how a powerful man can gaslight his wife into questioning her own sanity, and how sometimes justice takes 5 years and a little girl with unmistakable eyes to finally arrive. Let's go back to where it all began, when Elena Sinclair still believed that love could survive anything, even the truth. 5 years earlier, Elena Sinclair Cross wakes up in a penthouse that costs more per month than most people earn in a year. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like a painting she used to curate before she became Mrs. Damien Cross. She's 28 years old and married to a man worth $2.3 billion, the kind of number that stops meaning anything real after the first few zeros. Damien Cross, 35, CEO of Cross Enterprises, a real estate and tech conglomerate that owns half the skyline she's staring at, lies beside her scrolling through his phone before his eyes are fully open. He kisses her forehead without looking up, a gesture that used to feel intimate but now feels automatic, like he's checking a box on his morning routine. She tells herself she's imagining the distance, that all marriages go through phases, that the man who proposed to her 3 years ago at that gallery opening where she was working as a curator still exists somewhere underneath the distraction. Elena gave up her career to support him, a decision that felt romantic when she made it and feels suffocating now, that she has nothing to fill her days except waiting for him to come home. She has no family to call when the loneliness gets unbearable. Orphaned at 19 in a car accident that took both parents and left her with survivor's guilt. She's never quite processed, and no siblings to share the weight. Damien was supposed to be her family, her fresh start, her proof that love could rebuild what loss had destroyed. But lately he's affectionate in that distant way that feels worse than coldness, present in body, but absent in every way that matters. And she can't shake the feeling that she's losing him to something she can't name. Then Damien announces he's hired a new executive assistant, his voice casual over breakfast like he's mentioning the weather, and Elena's instinct starts screaming before she even meets her. Sophia Loren, 26, Stanford MBA, brilliant according to everyone who mentions her name with that particular tone of admiration that makes Elena's stomach tighten. When they finally meet at a company dinner, Sophia is everything Elena expected and worse. Beautiful in that polished way that looks effortless but costs a fortune to maintain. Charming with the kind of warmth that feels calculated if you're paying attention. Deferential to Damien in a way that somehow makes Elena feel like the outsider in her own marriage. Elena notices things that make her skin crawl. The way Sophia laughs just a beat too long at Damien's mediocre jokes. How she texts him after hours about matters that somehow can't wait until morning. The fact that she knows details about his schedule that Elena doesn't, like when he changed his coffee order or rescheduled his dentist appointment. When Elena mentions her concerns that night, Damien's response is immediate and cutting. "You're being paranoid, Elena." She's just efficient. This is exactly the kind of jealousy that's been pushing me away. Over the next 6 months, Damien becomes a stranger wearing her husband's face. The late nights multiply until he's coming home at 2, 3 for the morning, smelling like expensive hotel soap and perfume that definitely isn't Elena's. Business trips that used to be solo suddenly require Sophia's presence. Her expertise, apparently indispensable for negotiations and presentations that never needed her before. He stops touching Elena, except in public where appearances matter. Stops asking about her day. Stops pretending he remembers the small things that used to prove he was listening. Elena tries everything her desperate mind can conjure. Cooking his favorite meals that sit untouched while he eats dinner at the office. Dressing in lingerie that he doesn't notice. Suggesting couples therapy that he dismisses as unnecessary drama. When she tries, he calls her needy. When she pulls back, he calls her cold. When she asks questions, he calls her exhausting. And she starts to wonder if maybe he's right, if maybe she is the problem destroying them. The evidence piles up like circumstantial proof in a trial she's prosecuting alone. Lipstick on his collar that he explains away as an overzealous client greeting. Unfamiliar perfume he claims is from the woman who sat next to him on a flight. Credit card charges at hotels in the city they live in that he justifies as emergency rooms for late meetings. Every time Elena brings up her concerns, Damien explodes with the righteous anger of the falsely accused, his voice rising to drown out her quiet questions. You're suffocating me. This is why we're falling apart. You don't trust me, and I can't live with someone who sees betrayal in every innocent interaction. She starts doubting her own instincts, wondering if her orphan trauma is making her paranoid about losing another person she loves, questioning whether her isolation has turned her into the jealous wife he says she's becoming. The destruction becomes public at a charity gala where Manhattan's elite gather to write checks and judge each other's marriages behind champagne flutes. Elena wears the dress Damien bought her specifically for this event, armor disguised as couture, and watches him across the room with Sophia, their body language intimate in ways that make strangers assume they're the couple. 2 glasses of wine provide just enough courage for Elena to approach, to ask Sophia politely but firmly to give them privacy. Sophia's smirk before she walks away tells Elena everything she needs to know. But when Elena turns to Damien and asks the question that's been burning in her throat for months, are you sleeping with her? He doesn't just deny it. He performs his denial for an audience, his voice loud enough to turn heads, his words chosen to wound. This is what I deal with. My wife's obsession with my assistant is destroying our marriage. Sophia's been nothing but professional, but Elena harasses her, accuses her, makes her life hell. Sophia returns right on cue, tears streaming down her face with the perfect timing of someone who's been waiting just off stage, and the guests stare at Elena like she's the villain in a play she didn't know she was performing in. Elena runs, mascara bleeding down her face, while paparazzi outside capture every humiliating second. And that night Damien doesn't come home at all. Sitting alone in their bed, Elena finds something in the bathroom trash that stops her heart. A positive pregnancy test. But it's not hers. Or is it? Have you ever been gaslit by someone you loved, where they made you feel crazy for noticing their lies? Drop a red flag in the comments if you've been there, because you're not alone, and I promise you, you were never crazy at all. The morning after the gala, Elena wakes to the sound of her front door opening, footsteps in the hallway that feel like an execution march, and when she stumbles into the kitchen still wearing last night's ruined makeup, Damien is standing there with 2 men in suits who radiate expensive legal education. He slides a stack of papers across the marble counter like he's closing a failed business deal, his voice flat and final. I can't do this anymore. You're toxic, Elena. You've driven me to this. The words land like physical blows, each one carefully chosen to shift blame from his infidelity to her reaction to it. And Elena stares at the divorce papers with hands that won't stop shaking. She signs nothing, her voice breaking as she begs for counseling, for one more chance, for any indication that 3 years of marriage mean more than a stack of legal documents. He refuses with the certainty of someone who made this decision months ago. Sophia has nothing to do with this. This is about you and your problems, Elena. Your jealousy, your inability to trust, your constant need for reassurance that's exhausting to live with. That afternoon, sitting in her doctor's office, because she needs someone to tell her she's not losing her mind, Elena learns she's 8 weeks pregnant. The news floods her system with relief and terror in equal measure, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach, where a cluster of cells is becoming a person who will have Damien's DNA and her determination. Maybe this will save them, her desperate mind whispers. Maybe when Damien knows he's going to be a father, he'll remember why he married her, why he once looked at her like she was his entire world compressed into one person. She stops at a boutique on the way home, buys a small gift box with silver ribbon, tucks the ultrasound picture inside with hands that tremble with hope she knows is probably foolish. She plans to tell him that weekend, maybe over dinner at the restaurant where he proposed, maybe in bed when he's soft and unguarded. maybe at any moment where the man she married might briefly reappear. But Damien's lawyers are already moving with the efficiency of people who've destroyed marriages for sport and profit. The prenup Elena signed when she was 25 and in love and stupid enough to believe love was protection enough turns out to be ironclad in ways that would impress a maximum security prison. She gets a minimal settlement, $200,000 that sounds like a fortune until you realize it's less than Damien spends on a car, plus the right to stay in the penthouse until it sells, which his team ensures happens within 3 weeks. His legal team leaks stories to tabloids with the precision of a military campaign. Billionaire's wife's obsession destroys marriage. Appears in page 6 over Elena's tear-stained face from the gala. Elena Cross in treatment for delusional jealousy. Runs in a gossip column, complete with anonymous sources who sound suspiciously like Sophia's friends. Friends say she stalked husband's assistant. Publishes with details only someone in Damien's inner circle could provide, painting Elena as the unhinged villain in a story where she was actually the victim seeing clearly. Elena's lawyer, a kind woman who's seen this pattern before, advises her to fight, to demand discovery, to force Damien to produce evidence of his fidelity. But Elena has no proof of an affair that was conducted in hotel rooms charged to corporate accounts, and late nights that could be explained as work and text messages that Sophia was smart enough to delete. Worse, Damien's team has constructed an entire case file of Elena's supposed erratic behavior. Angry texts to Sophia that were actually desperate pleas begging her to leave the marriage alone. Voicemails to Damien when he wouldn't come home that sound unhinged when played without context. Even a police report Sophia filed claiming Elena harassed her at the office when Elena showed up one afternoon to bring Damien lunch and found his door locked with Sophia inside. Every piece of evidence Elena thought proved her sanity has been weaponized to prove her instability. Every reasonable reaction to unreasonable circumstances twisted into symptoms of jealous delusion. The realization hits Elena like ice water. This was planned. Not just the affair, but her destruction. Sophia and Damien didn't just fall in love and make a mistake. They orchestrated Elena's demolition with the care of architects designing a building's collapse. They made her look unstable, so the divorce would be easy, so Damien could walk away with his reputation intact and his billions protected. They turned her legitimate concerns into evidence of paranoia, her attempts to save her marriage into proof of obsession, her entirely reasonable questions into demonstrations of toxicity. Every fight, every accusation, every moment of justified anger was recorded and reframed until Elena couldn't recognize herself in the story they were telling about her. She realizes with nauseating clarity that Sophia has been studying her for months, learning exactly which buttons to push to make Elena react in ways that could be photographed and documented and used against her in court. Elena makes one last attempt to tell Damien about the pregnancy, walking to his office with a gift box in her purse, and hoping she knows is probably already dead. She finds him behind his desk, power and control radiating from his posture, and Sophia sitting in the chair Elena used to occupy during their courtship, the chair where she'd read books while he worked late, back when late nights were about ambition instead of affair. Sophia's left hand catches the light, and Elena sees what looks unmistakably like an engagement ring, diamonds that probably cost more than Elena's entire settlement. Before Elena can open her mouth to share news that might change everything, Damien speaks with the impatience of someone who has more important things to do than acknowledge his soon-to-be ex-wife's existence. Good, you're here. Sign the final papers. Sophia and I have a meeting in 20 minutes. The truth arranges itself in Elena's mind with devastating clarity. Sophia isn't just the other woman, the temporary distraction, the mistake Damien might someday regret. She's the replacement, already moved into Elena's life before the divorce is even final, already wearing the ring that marks her as the next Mrs. Cross, already sitting in the chair that used to be Elena's, like she's erasing every trace of the woman who came before. Elena's hand moves to her purse where the ultrasound picture waits in its silver box, proof of a life growing inside her that might matter to Damien or might just become another thing he uses to control her. She looks at Damien, cold and done, already focused on whatever Sophia is showing him on her tablet. She looks at Sophia, whose smirk is barely hidden now that victory is so close. Elena makes a choice that will define the next 5 years of her life. She signs the papers without speaking a single word, takes her settlement check that feels like payment for her silence, and walks out of that office with her secret still safe inside her body. She doesn't tell him about the baby, doesn't give him the chance to use her pregnancy as leverage or ammunition or another thing to dismiss as manipulation. This baby is hers, only hers, and she will raise this child somewhere Damien Cross's money and lies can't reach. Within 48 hours, Elena Sinclair vanishes from New York City. No forwarding address, no social media accounts, no trail for investigators or journalists or anyone else who might come looking. Gone like she never existed, erased as completely as Damien tried to erase her credibility. And growing inside her is a secret that will change everything when it walks through a cathedral door 5 years later with steel gray eyes that look exactly like its father's. If you found out you were pregnant right after your husband destroyed you publicly, would you tell him? Or would you disappear and raise the baby alone? Comment on your honest answer, because this is the question that will haunt the rest of this story. Elena Sinclair disappears to Portland, Oregon, about as far from Manhattan's glittering cruelty as you can get without leaving the country, trading penthouse views for a modest 2-bedroom apartment where rain drums against windows that don't cost more than cars. She works as a freelance art consultant, using the expertise she abandoned for marriage to help small galleries and emerging artists, making enough to cover rent and groceries and the kind of simple life that feels revolutionary after years of suffocating wealth. 5 months after she arrives, her water breaks at 3 a.m, and she drives herself to the hospital because there's no husband to call, no family to notify, just her and the baby who's been her secret companion through the worst months of her life. Isabel Elena Sinclair enters the world with a cry that sounds like fury and determination in equal measure, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and steel gray eyes that stop Elena's heart because they're unmistakably Damien's eyes staring out of her daughter's face. Elena calls her Bella, holds her against her chest in that hospital room while rain streaks the windows, and makes a promise that will define the next 5 years. This child will know love so complete, so unconditional, so utterly untainted by the toxic marriage that created her, that she'll never question her worth the way Elena questioned hers. Elena pours everything she has into motherhood, reading bedtime stories and voices that make Bella giggle, teaching her to mix colors on paper before she can write her name, raising her with a kind of honesty that doesn't require her to understand adult complexities to know she's cherished. When Bella is 3 and starts asking questions about the daddy other kids have, and she doesn't, Elena tells her age-appropriate truth that doesn't include words like betrayal or gaslighting or public humiliation. Your daddy lives far away. He doesn't know about you yet. But that's okay, baby, because you are so loved by me, and so many people who think you're the most special girl in the world. Elena builds the kind of community you can't buy with billions. Kind neighbors who babysit when she has client meetings, a single mother support group that meets Tuesday nights and feels like the family she lost when her parents died, a life that's simple and real, and hers in ways her marriage never was. She starts painting again, something she gave up when Damien's schedule became her schedule, and his priorities became her entire existence, creating abstract pieces that sell online to people who have no idea the artist is a supposedly crazy ex-wife who vanished from New York society. The money isn't much, but it's hers, earned by her talent instead of her marriage. And every sale feels like reclaiming a piece of herself she thought Damien had destroyed. She goes to therapy every Thursday, sitting in a modest office that smells like lavender and rain, processing trauma with a therapist who specializes in domestic abuse and helps Elena understand that she wasn't crazy. She was being systematically gaslit by someone who needed her to doubt her own sanity, so he could rewrite their story with himself as the victim. Back in New York, Damien and Sophia's relationship goes public exactly 2 months after the divorce finalizes, a timeline that would make anyone with basic math skills question the narrative about Elena's paranoid jealousy destroying an innocent marriage. Society approves with the enthusiasm of people who prefer polished lies to messy truths. So much more suitable than that unstable first wife. The society pages declare, featuring photos of Damien and Sophia at galas and gallery openings and charity functions. Their matching smiles suggesting a couple who found real love instead of two people who bonded over destroying someone else. They become the it couple, gracing magazine covers and philanthropic initiatives. Their carefully curated social media, suggesting a romance too perfect to be anything but performance. But behind the closed doors of the penthouse Damien once shared with Elena, cracks appear in Sophia's flawless facade. She's ambitious in ways that make Damien's ruthlessness look gentle, always positioning for the next photo opportunity, the next power move, the next rung on a ladder that has no top. She wants more than Damien's love. She wants his ring, his name, his empire, the complete absorption of his identity into hers. She monitors his phone with the dedication of a forensic investigator, checks his schedule against his actual locations, questions every female employee who looks at him too long or laughs at his jokes with too much enthusiasm. She's jealous, paranoid, controlling, everything she accused Elena of being. And the irony would be funny if Damien let himself acknowledge it instead of telling himself this is different, that Sophia's concerns are legitimate unlike Elena's delusions. Damien thinks about Elena sometimes, usually late at night when Sophia's asleep, and the penthouse feels exactly as empty as it did before he filled it with someone new. He wonders where Elena went, whether she's okay, whether she thinks about him the way he thinks about her in moments he won't admit to anyone including himself. He feels something that might be guilt if he let himself examine it closely, but he buries it under rationalizations that sound thinner every time he repeats them. He did the right thing. Elena was unwell. Moving on with Sophia was natural. The divorce was inevitable. Her jealousy destroyed them. He had no choice. He proposes to Sophia 3 years after the divorce, in Paris at a restaurant that costs more per meal than most people earn in a month. And she says yes before he finishes asking, her excitement genuine, but also somehow calculated, like she's been waiting for this moment, and won't let it slip away by pretending to consider. Meanwhile, Cross Enterprises thrives under Damien's leadership, stock prices climbing, acquisitions multiplying, his net worth approaching $3 billion in ways that should feel like victory, but taste like ash. He works constantly, 16-hour days that leave no room for thoughts he doesn't want to think, drinks more than he should, but less than he could, sleeps poorly despite Egyptian cotton sheets and prescription medication that promises rest without nightmares. Sophia is there, perfect on his arm, at every event, her Botox smooth face arranged in appropriate expressions. But he can't shake the feeling that he destroyed something real for something polished, but fundamentally empty, that he traded a woman who loved him for a woman who loves what he represents. Present day, 5 years after the divorce that made Elena disappear and Sophia victorious, Damien and Sophia plan their wedding with a kind of excess that announces you won in. Life. 500 guests, cathedral ceremony, reception at the plaza, media coverage that will make this the social event of the season. Sophia is in full bridezilla mode, a term she would hate, but embodies perfectly, demanding perfection in every detail from the shade of white in her custom gown to the temperature of the champagne that will toast their union. She fires 3 wedding planners for infractions that range from legitimate incompetence to the crime of not reading her mind, monitors the guest list with obsessive attention to ensure no one who is Team Elena receives an invitation, checks and rechecks seating arrangements to prevent any configuration that might result in less than perfect photographs. She's waited 5 years for this wedding, 5 years of being the girlfriend, and then the fiancée, but never the wife, and it will be absolutely flawless because anything less would be failure. Damien goes through the motions with the enthusiasm of someone signing legal documents, approving details Sophia presents, signing checks that would make normal people weep, showing up for tuxedo fittings and cake tastings and florist consultations with the presence of a man whose body is there, but whose mind is somewhere else. The night before the wedding, he dreams about Elena for the first time in years, her face when he called her toxic at that gala, her tears when she signed the divorce papers with hands that shook so badly she could barely hold a pen, the way she looked at him in his office, that final time like he'd killed something irreplaceable, and she was watching it die. He wakes up at 4 in the morning drenched in sweat, inexplicable dread sitting on his chest like a physical weight. Sophia sleeping peacefully beside him, completely unaware that her groom is having second thoughts he'll never admit to anyone, including himself. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Portland, Elena sits at her kitchen table with coffee and her laptop, while Bella is at preschool learning colors and shapes and how to share. She reads about the wedding online, not because she's been searching for information, but because the algorithm knows she once searched Damien's name and won't let her forget he exists. She sees his face, older and somehow diminished despite the expensive grooming, and Sophia's triumphant smile that screams victory to anyone who knows the backstory. Elena stares at those photos for a long time, her coffee going cold. Elena stares at those photos for a long time, her coffee going cold, and makes a decision that will change everything. Her daughter deserves to know her father. Not because Damien deserves to know Bella, not because Elena wants anything from him, not because she's holding on to hope that he's changed or regrets what he did, but because Bella, at 4 years old, has started asking harder questions that your daddy lives far away doesn't answer anymore. "Why doesn't my daddy want to meet me?" she asked last week, her steel gray eyes filling with tears she tried to hide. "Did I do something wrong? Is that why he doesn't love me?" Elena won't let her daughter grow up believing she wasn't wanted, that her father's absence is her fault, that there's something wrong with her that made him stay away. It's time for Damien Cross to face what he abandoned before he even knew it existed. Elena opens a browser, finds flights from Portland to New York, and books 2 tickets. Departure date, the morning of Damien's wedding. 1 adult, 1 child. 1 way, because she doesn't know yet if they'll be coming back. Is Elena wrong for showing up at his wedding? Or does Damien deserve to have his perfect day ruined after what he did? Team Elena or Team Let It Go? Comment below, because this one doesn't have an easy answer. Elena and Bella arrive at the cathedral as the ceremony begins, stepping out of their taxi into afternoon sunlight that makes the stone building look like something from a fairy tale. Though Elena knows this particular story has no fairy godmother coming to save anyone. Elena wears a simple but elegant navy dress she bought specifically for this moment, not to compete with Sophia's custom gown, but to show everyone who dismissed her as unstable that she's no longer the broken woman who signed divorce papers with shaking hands 5 years ago. Bella wears a blue dress with white flowers, her dark hair in careful braids. Elena spent an hour perfecting this morning, her small hand gripping her mother's with the nervous energy of a child who senses something important is happening, but doesn't understand what. "Mama, why are we here?" Bella whispers as they approach the massive doors, and Elena kneels down to her daughter's eye level, smoothing a strand of hair that's escaped the braids. "Because it's time, baby. Time for your daddy to meet you." They slip into the back pew as organ music swells through the cathedral. 500 guests in designer attire, completely unaware that the woman they gossiped about for months is sitting 20 rows behind them. Elena watches Damien at the altar, and her first thought is how tired he looks despite the expensive tuxedo that probably cost more than 3 months of her Portland rent, lines around his eyes that weren't there 5 years ago, a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. Sophia stands beside him in yards of white silk and lace, glowing with victory, so bright Elena can practically see it radiating off her like heat, completely unaware that the bomb she tried to bury 5 years ago just walked through the door, holding its own hand. The officiant reaches the moment Elena has been waiting for, his voice carrying through the cathedral with practiced solemnity. If anyone here knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. The silence that follows is absolute. 500 people holding their breath in that performative way wedding guests do when they know no one will actually object. Then Elena stands, the movement causing heads to turn in a ripple effect that starts with the back rows and spreads forward like a wave. Whispers erupt immediately, recognition spreading through the crowd faster than any social media algorithm. Is that Elena? What is she doing here? Oh my God, is that a child? Sophia's face contorts in rage so pure that her careful Botox can't quite mask it, while Damien's face drains of every drop of color until he looks like a man who's seen a ghost he thought he'd successfully buried. Elena walks forward with Bella's small hand in hers, and she doesn't rush, doesn't shout, doesn't give anyone ammunition to call her unstable or dramatic, or any of the words they used to destroy her credibility 5 years ago. She just walks with quiet confidence down that endless aisle, her daughter's footsteps echoing beside hers, 500 pairs of eyes tracking their progress toward the altar where Damien stands frozen like someone pressed pause on his entire existence. When Elena reaches the front, close enough to see the panic in Damien's eyes and the barely controlled fury in Sophia's clenched jaw, she speaks with a clarity that carries to every corner of the cathedral. "I'm not here to stop your wedding, Damien. I'm here because your daughter deserves to meet her father." The gasps that follow sound like a collective inhale of shock, phones materializing from clutches and pockets, as guests scramble to record what's clearly about to become the most viral moment in Manhattan society history. Sophia shrieks with a kind of volume that undermines every claim she ever made about Elena being unstable. "This is insane. Security. Get this crazy woman out of here before she ruins everything." But Elena doesn't flinch, doesn't engage, just gently guides Bella forward with a mother's protective touch and a steady voice that cuts through Sophia's hysteria. "Bella, sweetheart, this is your daddy." Bella looks up at Damien with eyes that are unmistakably his eyes, steel gray and wide with the innocent curiosity of a child meeting someone important for the first time. "Hi, Daddy," she says with the careful politeness Elena taught her for meeting new people. "Mama says you didn't know about me. I'm 4 years old. I like painting and dinosaurs. Do you want to meet me?" Damien stares at this child, his child, and the world narrows to just her face, the resemblance so undeniable that even the most skeptical guest in the cathedral can see it. She has his eyes, his coloring, his dark hair, the determined set of his jaw, the exact shape of his face compressed into miniature. He can't speak, can't breathe, can't process that he has a daughter who's been alive for 4 years while he's been planning a wedding to a woman who isn't her mother. Sophia grabs his arm with fingernails that dig into his expensive tuxedo, her voice rising to a pitch that would shatter glass if desperation had frequency. "Damien, she's lying. This is another one of her tricks, another manipulation. Don't let her do this to us. Not today, not on our wedding day." But Damien can't look away from Bella, can't stop seeing himself in her features, can't ignore the truth that's staring at him with his own eyes asking if he wants to meet her. Elena speaks directly to the crowd now, knowing this is her only chance to tell the truth to an audience that might actually listen instead of believing whatever story Damien's lawyers feed to tabloids. 5 years ago, Damien called me toxic, obsessive, crazy in front of half the people in this room. He divorced me for this woman standing beside him. But I wasn't crazy. I was pregnant. I was 8 weeks pregnant when he served me divorce papers on our kitchen counter. 10 weeks pregnant when he paraded his mistress at charity events while telling everyone I needed professional help. 12 weeks pregnant when I signed the final papers because I realized my husband would rather destroy me than admit he was having an affair. I left New York because I wouldn't let my child grow up watching her mother be systematically dismantled by a man who was supposed to love her. But Bella deserves to know her father, deserves to not spend her life wondering why her daddy didn't want her. So here we are. The cathedral erupts into chaos, guests shouting questions over each other, while Sophia screams denials that sound increasingly unhinged. Paparazzi, who somehow materialized at the doors, capturing every second on cameras that will make this the biggest scandal of the year. Damien finally finds his voice, though it comes out broken and disbelieving. "Elena, is she really mine? Is that child actually my daughter?" Elena pulls out her phone with steady hands, scrolling to photos she's kept for exactly this moment, holding the screen where Damien and nearby guests can see. The ultrasound from 5 years ago, timestamped 2 days before their final divorce papers are signed. The date clearly visible in the corner. Bella's birth certificate lists father unknown, because Elena refused to name a man who'd called her toxic and kicked her out of his life. Photos spanning 4 years, from newborn to present day. Damien's steel gray eyes staring back from every image. Undeniable proof that this child carries his DNA in every cell. "DNA test whenever you want," Elena says, her voice steady despite the emotional grenade she just detonated. "I'm not asking for money, not demanding child support. Not here to take anything from you. I'm asking for you to acknowledge that your daughter exists, that she's a person who matters, that she deserves a father who knows she's alive. She deserves that much, even if I deserved nothing from you." The silence that follows is deafening until Sophia shatters it by going completely nuclear, her carefully constructed mask disintegrating in real time. She slaps Elena across the face with enough force that security finally moves in, screaming accusations that sound increasingly desperate. She's a liar. That child is fake. This is all a setup, another scheme from a woman who couldn't accept that I won. But the guests see through it now, see Sophia's instability, her rage, her desperation to maintain a lie that's crumbling faster than she can rebuild it. Damien turns to Sophia with an expression that would freeze lava, his voice low and deadly. "Did you know?" Sophia freezes mid-rant, her face going pale. "Did you know Elena was pregnant when we started planning our relationship? When you filed that restraining request? When you leaked those stories to tabloids calling her unstable?" Sophia's silence is answer enough, and a guest near the front who clearly remembers more than Sophia Hope shouts loud enough for everyone to hear. "I remember now. Elena tried to come to Damien's office that day, the day she signed the final papers. Sophia called security on her and said she was dangerous." Another voice joins in. "Sophia told me Elena was stalking Damien, that she was a threat, that we should all stay away from her." The truth unfolds in real time as guests piece together what actually happened 5 years ago. Sophia knew or suspected Elena was pregnant, did everything possible to keep her away from Damien, orchestrated Elena's public destruction to eliminate any chance she'd come back and disrupt the life Sophia was stealing. Damien looks at Sophia like he's seeing her for the first time, really seeing her without the filter of attraction or convenience or the story he told himself about why leaving Elena was justified. "You kept my child from me," he says, and it's not a question. It's devastation compressed into 6 words. "You knew she was pregnant, and you made sure I never found out." Sophia's mask drops completely, revealing the woman Elena always saw underneath. "She was mine. You were supposed to be mine. I did everything right. I was perfect for you. I gave you exactly what you needed. That pathetic, needy woman never deserved you. Never deserved this life." The cathedral hears every word, records every word, captures the moment when the other woman reveals she's exactly what she accused the wife of being. Damien walks away from the altar without another word to Sophia, walks to Elena and Bella with steps that look like they're hurting him, and kneels in front of his daughter, so they're eye to eye. "I'm so sorry I didn't know about you," he says through tears he doesn't bother hiding. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for your first steps, your first words, your first everything. I'm so sorry." Bella studies her father's face with the wisdom children sometimes have when adults are falling apart, then says with heartbreaking simplicity, "It's okay, Daddy. Mama said you made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Do you want to be my daddy now?" Damien can only nod, unable to speak through tears streaming down his face, unable to do anything but stare at this child who's offering him forgiveness he doesn't deserve and a chance he hasn't earned. The wedding was over before it began, the cathedral full of witnesses to the moment when 5 years of lies finally caught up with the people who told them. Does Damien deserve to know his daughter after what he did to Elena? Does Bella deserve to know her father even though he's flawed? This one's complicated. So tell us what you really think in the comments. The cathedral had emptied like a punctured balloon, guests streaming out in clusters, phones pressed to ears, voices sharp with scandal and delight. The wedding of a year had become the spectacle of the decade, and everyone wanted to be the first to tell the story. In a private sacristy off the main hall, far from the chaos, 3 people sat in the settling dust of destruction. Bella knelt on the Persian rug, arranging discarded altar flowers into patterns only she understood. White roses and orchids became a galaxy of petals, while she hummed something that might have been a lullaby. Her patent leather shoes caught the stained glass light, throwing colored shadows across the ancient stone floor. Elena sat in a carved wooden chair, her emerald dress a shock of color against the room's severity. She watched her daughter with the focus of someone afraid to look anywhere else, certainly not at the man slumped against the opposite wall. Damien had removed his jacket. His crisp white shirt was wrinkled, collar open. Tie vanished somewhere in the wreckage of the ceremony. He looked smaller somehow, as if humiliation had a physical weight that pressed down on the shoulders. The silence stretched and stretched until it became its own presence in the room. I destroyed everything. His voice cracked on the words. I destroyed you. I didn't know our daughter existed. How do I even begin to apologize? Elena's laugh was bitter and brief. You don't. Not to me. She finally looked at him, and her eyes held no softness. You apologize to her, if she ever asks. Right now, we figure out what's best for Bella. I want to know her. The desperation in his voice was raw, unpolished. Nothing like the smooth CEO who'd commanded boardrooms. I want to be her father. I'll do whatever DNA test, family court, therapy, whatever you need. I need. Elena stopped, steadied herself. I need to make sure you're stable. That you've actually changed. That you won't call her mother crazy when things get hard. Her voice dropped to something dangerous. That you won't abandon her like you abandoned me. Bella looked up from her flowers. Mama, why are you sad? I'm not sad, baby. Just talking with Damien. Daddy, Bella corrected matter of fact. She returned to her flowers. The word hung in the air between them like a suspended sentence. Damien's hands trembled. I'll prove it, however long it takes. He wasn't looking at Elena anymore. He was looking at the little girl who'd called him daddy twice in one day, who'd trusted him with an innocence he didn't deserve. I'll prove I can be what she needs. Elena stood, smoothed her dress with shaking hands. Then prove it. Not with grand gestures. Not with money. Show up. Be consistent. Be honest. Be the father she deserves, not the man you were. Outside, sirens wailed, paparazzi scatter, probably, or Sophia making her dramatic exit. The world was still spinning, still hungry for the next chapter of the scandal. But in this room, time moved differently. Slower. More honest. We should go, Elena said, extending her hand to Bella. Say goodbye to Damien, sweetheart. Bella ran to him instead, threw her small arms around his neck. Bye, Daddy. Will I see you again? Over her daughter's head, Elena watched Damien's face crumple and rebuild itself. I watched him fight for control. If your mama says yes, he whispered into Bella's hair. If she says yes. Bella pulled back, cupped his face in her tiny hands with a seriousness that was almost comical. You should smile more. Mama says smiling helps when you're sad. Your mama's very smart. I know. Bella skipped back to Elena, grabbed her hand. Can we get French fries? Yes, baby. We can get French fries. At the door, Elena paused. Didn't turn around. My lawyer will contact you. We'll do this right. Slowly. For her sake, not yours. Elena. That's all I have right now, Damien. That's all I can give. The door closed with a sound like finality, like the last page of something turning. Damien sat alone in the sacristy, surrounded by abandoned flowers and the ghost of a wedding that never was, and for the first time in 5 years, let himself cry. 3 months later, the DNA test came back on a Tuesday. 99.9% probability of paternity, as if there had ever been any doubt. But Elena had insisted everything documented, everything official, everything protected. The supervised visits began at a neutral park in Westchester, 40 minutes from Manhattan. Far enough from paparazzi. Close enough to Elena's apartment. Safe. Damien showed up 15 minutes early to the first visit, waited on a bench like a defendant awaiting verdict. When Elena arrived with Bella, he stood too quickly, nearly knocking over the coffee he'd been strangling. Hi. Inadequate words. Insufficient syllables. Hi. Elena's voice was glacier smooth. Professional. She wore jeans and a sweater the first time he'd seen her in anything casual in 6 years. It made her look younger. More like the woman he'd married. The woman he'd destroyed. Bella, thankfully, had no such complications. Daddy, I brought my coloring books. Do you like mermaids? The hour passed in crayon scribbles and playground adventures. Elena watched from a nearby bench, phone in hand, but eyes always tracking. Always vigilant. When time was up, Bella hugged him goodbye, without prompting. Damien held on maybe a second too long. Same time next week, he asked Elena. Same time. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was permission. And that was more than he deserved. 5 months later, Damien sold the penthouse. Too many ghosts, too many memories of who he'd been. The new brownstone in Brooklyn was smaller, warmer. He'd let Bella pick the paint color for the guest room that was slowly becoming her room. She'd chosen purple with glow-in-the-dark stars for the ceiling. Therapy happened on Thursdays. Dr. Morrison didn't let him hide behind excuses or explanations. She made him excavate the choices that led to the cathedral, to Sophia, to the man who'd called his wife toxic because it was easier than admitting his own poison. You gaslit her, Dr. Morrison said during their 8th session. You convinced her and yourself that her reasonable reactions to your betrayal were signs of instability. That's abuse, Damien. Intentional or not. He'd thrown up in the bathroom after that session. But he kept going. Keep showing up. I kept doing the work. 7 months later. Daddy, watch this. Bella hung upside down from the monkey bars, pigtails defying gravity, grin wide enough to split the sky. I'm watching. That's amazing, princess. She dropped down, ran to him for the obligatory high five, then spotted a butterfly and chased it with a single-minded focus of the very young. Elena sat beside him on the bench now. Not distant. Not warm. Somewhere in between. She talks about you, Elena said quietly. At bedtime. She tells her stuffed animals about Daddy and the pancakes and Daddy and the funny voices. I'm trying. Inadequate words again. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm trying. I can see that. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture he remembered from their early days. You're different. Not the same person, but different. Is it different enough? For Bella? Yes. She deserves a father who shows up, who tries, who sees her. Elena's voice softened fractionally. For me? I don't know yet. Maybe it never will be. Maybe that's okay. They watched Bella chase butterflies through dandelion wishes and spring sunshine. I'm sorry, Damien said. I know I've said it before. I'll probably say it 1,000 more times. But I'm sorry, Elena. For all of it. For making you doubt yourself. For choosing my ego over your truth. For... Stop. She held up her hand. I heard you. I believe you're sorry. But sorry doesn't rewrite history, Damien. It doesn't give me back the years I spent thinking I was crazy. It doesn't erase the nights I cried myself sick, or the therapy bills, or the way I had to rebuild myself from nothing. I know. But she took a breath. But it's a start. For her. We're building something new here. Not fixing what broke that's gone. Co-parenting. Coexisting. For Bella. That's more than I deserve. Yes, she agreed simply. It is. 8 months later. Sophia's engagement announcement broke on a slow news Tuesday. She was marrying a German industrialist, 73 years old, worth 3 times what Damien had. The photo showed her dripping in diamonds, smiling sharp as ever. Damien deleted the article without finishing it. Some ghosts deserved to stay buried. 10 months later. It was an ordinary Saturday. The zoo, because Bella had been begging to see the new penguin exhibit. Ice cream after, because that's what Saturdays were for. They walked through the reptile house, Bella fearless, before snakes and lizards, Elena and Damien exchanging amused glances over her head. When did that start? The shared parenting looks. The unspoken communication. At the penguin pool, Bella pressed her face to the glass, breath fogging the surface. They're so fancy. Like little waiters. Very distinguished, Damien agreed solemnly. Penguins mate for life, Elena said, then immediately looked like she regretted it. The observation hung awkwardly between them. Not all of them, Damien said softly. Some do. Some mess it up. Some get second chances to do better, even if it's not the same as before. Elena met his eyes. Hold them. No, not the same. Bella squealed as a penguin waddled directly toward her viewing spot. The moment passed, unresolved but not hostile. They got ice cream chocolate for Bella, vanilla for Elena, coffee for Damien. sat on a bench near the carousel, while Bella's ice cream dripped faster than she could lick. "Mama, Daddy, are we a family?" Bella asked suddenly, in the way children do, dropping grenades disguised as questions. Elena and Damien looked at each other. Years of history, oceans of hurt, fragile bridges slowly building. "We're your family," Elena said carefully. "We both love you. That makes us a family, even if it looks different than some families." "Like Sophie has 2 houses because her parents are divorced," Bella said matter-of-factly. "I have 2 houses too, but mine are both nice." "Both nice?" Damien asked. "Yeah. Mama's has good mac and cheese. Yours has the glow stars." She shrugged, already moving on. "Can we ride the carousel?" They rode the carousel, Bella between them on a painted giraffe, laughing as the world spun in circles of golden light and calliope music. Elena's hand rested near Damien's on the pole, not touching, close enough to feel the warmth. When the ride ended, Bella grabbed both their hands. "Let's walk together. I want to swing." She jumped between them, making them lift her over cracks in the sidewalk, over shadows, over invisible obstacles only she could see. Each time she jumped, she laughed with pure, uncomplicated joy. They walked like that to the parking lot. 3 people connected by small hands and complicated history, by hurt and healing, by endings and fragile beginnings. "Same time next weekend?" Damien asked at Elena's car. "Same time." She smiled. Small. Genuine. "Maybe we could try the aquarium." Bella would love that. Yeah, she would. Elena opened the back door, helped Bella with her seatbelt. "Say goodbye to Daddy." "Bye, Daddy. Love you." The word still hit like a freight train. Every single time. "Love you too, Princess." He watched them drive away, his daughter waving from the back window until the car turned the corner and disappeared. Not a fairy tale. Not a disaster. Just real. The park in autumn was a riot of color red and gold leaves scattered like nature's confetti. Bella, now 6, wore yellow rain boots even though it hadn't rained in days. She stomped through leaf piles with scientific dedication, while Elena and Damien walked behind. "She made an honor roll," Elena said. "Her teacher says she's reading 2 grades ahead." "She gets that from you." Damien kicked a pine cone. "The smart thing. The determined thing. She gets stubbornness from both of us, I think." They laughed. It was easier now. Not effortless, but easier. "I've been meaning to ask," Elena said carefully. "The company I heard you from stepped down as CEO. Executive chairman now. Marcus runs day-to-day operations. I consult, attend board meetings, but..." He shrugged. "I wanted time. For her. For therapy. For figuring out who I am when I'm not performing." "That's good. Growth looks good on you." "Elena. No, I mean it. A year ago, I didn't know if we'd make it here. If you'd sustain the effort. If Bella would get hurt. But you've shown up. Every single time. That matters." Ahead of them, Bella had found a particularly large leaf pile and dove in face first. She emerged covered in leaves and glory. "Did you see that?" "I was buried." "We saw," they called in unison. Bella ran ahead to find the next adventure. "Will you ever forgive me?" Damien asked. The question he'd been carrying for a year. Elena was quiet for a long time. Watched their daughter dance through autumn. "I don't know," she said finally. "Some things leave scars too deep to fully heal. But I'm not carrying it the same way anymore. The anger. The hurt. It's there, but it doesn't define me. That's more than I hoped for." "Yeah, it is." She looked at him, then really looked. "We're never getting back together, Damien. You know that, right? This isn't a reconciliation story." "I know. But we're building something. Co-parents. Friends, maybe eventually. For her." "For her," he echoed. Bella ran back to them, breathing hard, leaves in her hair. "I'm tired. Can we get hot chocolate?" "With marshmallows?" Elena asked. "The little ones. Not the big ones." They walked to the cafe at the park's edge, Bella between them, holding both their hands, secure in the knowledge that both her parents would show up, would stay, and would love her. Not a family in the traditional sense, but something real, something honest, something built from ruins and made stronger for it. The future was uncertain. Forgiveness was incomplete. The past couldn't be rewritten. But they were here. All three of them. Together in the ways that mattered. And for today, that was enough. Some stories don't end with kissing in the rain or dramatic declarations of eternal love. Some end with hot chocolate and leaves in your hair, with co-parenting schedules and hard-won boundaries, with the slow, painful work of becoming better than you were. This is one of those stories. Not perfect, not pretty, but real. And reality is always worth more than fantasy. Thanks for watching this story till the end. If it touched your heart, make sure to subscribe, comment where you're watching from, and share your thoughts about the story below. I'd love to hear what you think. May God bless you abundantly.